So we've been working our way through a teaching from teacher Akinchino. He describes it as the 4 skills that a meditator would be good for them to develop. And they are being able to connect with the present moment. So actually knowing what's going on in our surroundings, in our body, in our mind, in our inner life, in our minds and emotions, like what's happening. So being present, that's kind of like the number one thing, or the place we want to start, and the place that we want to continue to develop. That's a never-ending process. We can become more and more and more deeply present. And then the second skill is to be able to move closer to experience. So we become present and know what's happening, and then we can actually move closer to it or become more intimate with it. And we'll meditate some and practice with it. But for instance, you're meditating and you can connect with the fact that you're breathing. Right? Usually we don't even notice it, but when you're meditating, the breath might be your object, and oh, right, I can feel it in and out. Okay, so you're present and you know you're breathing. But now one can move closer to that. Does the in-breath feel the same as the out-breath? Do I feel them in the same place in my body? Is the in-breath longer or shorter than the out-breath? Do the feelings that I'm feeling, are they pleasant or unpleasant or in between, etc., etc.? So that's an example of moving closer to experience. That is learning or experiencing something about it, not just knowing that it's there. So I can know this is here, okay, okay, I'm aware of it, I'm present. Okay, what can I know about it? Oh, it's heavy, this is heavy. It's round, it's shiny, it's pounded. This is a pounded bowl, not a spun bowl. It's got little pieces of patina in it where the metal's starting to, whatever it does when it does that, oxidize, or I don't know. And notice, to move closer to experience, you have to spend time with it. So we connect with experience, the first skill, and then we need to spend time to be able to stay steady with experience, to get to know something about it, or move closer to experience. So that's the second one. The third one, which we're going to talk about and practice with tonight, is moving away from experience. That's a skill. We need to be able to do that. And then the fourth one is, he says, keeping he calls them the 3 universals, the 3 common characteristics of experience, the 3 insights really of insight meditation, of change, of suffering, it's more nuanced than that, and of not self. These are the 3 qualities that everything, every moment is displaying. It's just the truths of life. So like keeping those in mind, like having that as a framework for how we see the world, how we not just see it, but how we actually interact with the world. We're interacting through the understanding of these 3 characteristics. That's the 4th skill, to be able to do that, to actually keep them in mind and have it be like a lens that we, or a rudder, or a way that we move through the world. Okay, and that's the 4th one. So this 3rd one can seem a bit odd, right? The first 2 make sense, yeah, and then move away from experience, really? That meditation is about moving away from experience? Aren't we supposed to be like one with all, right? Well, some of the time, but some of the time we actually want to move away from experience. Yeah. Like when experience is really dangerous. Yeah. Or like when experience is overwhelming. Or just when experience is just unwholesome and we don't want to engage in it. Yeah, so they're kind of like different levels of, from, kind of extreme danger to some overwhelming to, well, this is just unwholesome. It could just be a thought, and I'd rather move away from that. I'd rather not entertain that. So I'll talk a little bit about each one, and I'm not sure if we can practice with all of them. Certainly with the third one, when experience is unwholesome. Yeah, we can practice a lot with that. Have you noticed in your mind at all? So we want to have the knowledge and the skill in terms of when to and how to move away from experience. Okay, the knowledge of when do we want to do this? And then the skill, how do I actually do it? Okay, so the knowledge and the skill of when to and how to move away from experience. So, and again, it's just starting with the extreme example, and we won't really practice with this because this kind of unfolds in our lives, or some of our lives. Sometimes experience is just really dangerous or harmful. I'm thinking about toxic relationships, dangerous/toxic relationships that we may have or may have had with someone or some people in our life. Yeah? It's good to move away from those, right? We want to take ourselves out of those situations, whatever they might be. Very helpful to know when to know when we're in, right? When we're in a situation that's not good for us. Abusive, codependent, whatever, yeah? Or even just more subtle. That friendship that, they never call back. I always call them. They never do anything for me on my birthday. I'm always doing something for them on their birthday. Like, maybe, not necessarily for sure, but maybe this is a relationship that's actually not great to be in for me. Maybe it would be healthy and onward leading for me to actually distance myself, move away from this experience. Yeah? So we can have experiences in our life, again, that run the gamut from a friendship that's not quite a little bit imbalanced, all the way to really toxic, abusive relationships that we want to move away from. Right? So there's that, just to name that. I wanted to name a few things because I wanted to show that this isn't just about moving away from experience, isn't just about when we're sitting on the cushion. Yeah, it's a skill that we can use all in our life everywhere. And of course, this moving away from experience on this level, of course, is supported by mindfulness and clear seeing, like this clear seeing of, this is not good for me, right? I mean, you may have been in relationships or in situations for a while, and there's not clear seeing, then all of a sudden, it gets clear, it's like, this is not good. I need to do something about this. So this is supported by clear seeing and mindfulness, and so there's that side, like the wisdom side of the teaching, but it's also supported by a sense of self-worth and care for oneself. I deserve not to be in an abusive relationship. I deserve to have friends that meet me halfway and where I'm not doing all the work, etc., etc. Yeah, so there's also a heart piece in there where we have a sense of our own goodness and well-being, and that we deserve to not be in these situations. Yeah. So there's that level. Then there's the level of when we're getting overwhelmed by experience. And this could be when we're sitting in meditation, or it could be when we're just going about our lives. It could be something that's chronic, right? Happening over time, where we're getting overwhelmed over time. Is anyone a caregiver here? Yeah, so you know how, I imagine you've experienced that at times where it can creep up, but it didn't just happen overnight. So that's what I mean by a chronic thing. Or overwhelm can be acute. It can happen, boom, just like that in a situation where we become overwhelmed. And I'm talking more, not so much physically, I'm talking more in the heart and mind, the inner life. Where what we're experiencing, where we don't have the resources, the skills, sometimes just the bandwidth, the emotional bandwidth to be able to hold that, to be able to kind of digest that experience. And it becomes overwhelming because we can't deal with it. We don't have the resources at that time. And all sorts of things could overwhelm us, right? I mentioned, maybe caregiving can get too much. What are some other examples of where you felt overwhelmed in your life? Work, of course, work. The noose, yeah, the work. Holidays. What's overwhelming about holidays?
Everything's happening.
Too much, just too much. Yeah. Expectations overwhelm you? Oh, on the holiday, yeah. Yep. What else? Where do else people feel overwhelmed?
I've been dealing with PTSD.
Mm-hmm. So that can flood. Yep. Memories, right. Emotions can just flare up. Sure, emotions can overwhelm us. Sadness, grief, anger, rage, desire. We can get overwhelmed by desire. Summer traffic. Do you get overwhelmed by the summer traffic, or do you get overwhelmed by your reaction to the summer traffic?
I get overwhelmed because you don't know if they're coming right, left, front.
Oh, okay. So
I live near a four-way stop.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, everybody gets really wigged out there.
Yeah. So, but this is important.
Oh, yeah.
So, what's happening for you when that's happening? You're sitting there driving, you're not sure they're coming left or right. What's going on?
Because I stop and I want to direct you next.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to tell them when to go.
So that what?
Because as they pull up, they have to stop and let the other three go.
Yeah.
And people just get all so I want to go out and direct traffic.
Right.
Yeah. That's a control thing.
Yeah. Yes. So that you don't have to feel out of control. Yeah. That can be over.
Get hit.
Right. You're right. There's fear. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. That's what it is.
Yep.
An overwhelming schedule, and you need to limit it or get simple.
Busyness. Yes. Yep. Work, whether it be work or it doesn't have to be work. It could be anything where things get filled up so much that it's too much. Yeah. And it's no fun to feel overwhelmed. It's a very difficult feeling to experience. Yeah, we don't like it. I know I don't like it.
I was going through an old house this week, my old house, cleaning out all kinds of stuff.
There you go.
All by myself.
Yeah.
And it's like a journey through my whole past.
Wow.
And then I think it's coming up. I was thinking, so these are just memories. I mean, where are they? They have weight. Can I put them in my hand?
Mm-hmm.
I did nothing but the thoughts.
Yep.
And yet they have such force, such power. It's like,
yeah.
Just keep on truckling on.
Yeah. So we can get overwhelmed in just our life, and so we're needing to know. Remember, the knowledge of when it's time to back off, and then the skill to actually do it. So how do you know you're getting overwhelmed? Right? Because we'll each respond differently, right? Some people, when they overwhelmed, will start to get angry and attack. Some people will collapse and shut down. Some people will try harder to keep it all together. Like everyone, we each have our kind of habitual, I don't know, coping mechanism or just way that we react to it. For me, I shut down. Like my brain literally shuts down. I stop being able to think, to deal. So when that happens, I know, oh, time to back off. How about anyone else? No?
I get tired.
You get tired.
That's kind of like what you.
Yeah, it's a checkout. Yeah.
But it's also like I just want to.
Yep. Get tired. Yeah.
Anxious.
Anxious.
Anxiety.
Yep. Anxiety comes up. Mm-hmm.
I go through everything, like anger.
Lots of different emotions.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anger, sticking through it,
Mm-hmm.
fear,
Mm-hmm.
guilt.
So when you're starting to have lots of emotions, that's
Yeah.
kind of your
And my body.
signal.
And my body. When
Yeah.
my body starts to react, then I know I've gone too far.
How does your body react? What happens?
It just clenches up.
Tightness. Yeah.
Right
That
in
tells
here.
you you're starting to get overwhelmed. Great. Any others?
I can't discipline myself. I can't make myself do what I want. I lose my motivation or ability to discipline myself. All of this, all things have to get done, working night and day. All of a sudden, I can't do it.
All of a sudden you can't do it. Yeah.
Just can't force it anymore.
Yep.
I want to say that when I get overwhelmed, I end up doing things like cleaning or doing something where I've taken back my control.
Yes.
I'm overwhelmed
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get the house really clean.
Yeah. Yes. So when you find yourself cleaning the house, then it's like, oh, what's happening?
Instead, it's like, this works.
Right. So it's important to know what your particular response to overwhelm is, because often we don't catch it. We only catch it through catching the response. We don't notice it when it creeps up. But if we can be really clear about what our response is, and especially after a few times of noticing it, we'll get better and we'll catch that response even earlier, and we'll be able to tune into the overwhelm pretty quickly. So that's the knowing when. When do I back off? Well, I'm starting to get overwhelmed. It's time to back off. Now how? What do you do when you're overwhelmed? Not the coping mechanism, but how do you actually come back into balance? What works for you? Take a breath. Just literally in the moment. A nice big breath. Great. Yoga. Getting into the body, right? Mostly when we're overwhelmed, we're disembodied. You feel your body tighten. In general, though, when we're overwhelmed, we're pretty not in our bodies. Great. Yeah.
I talk to myself a little. It sounds crazy, but I'll say, okay, hold on now.
Yeah.
Slow down.
Uh-huh. Okay. So some kind of self-talk but that's wise and kind. Yeah.
Leave the situation.
Yeah, just leave, if you can, literally remove oneself. Yep.
I take a nap.
Take a nap. Yes. Yep.
Walk, particularly on the
Walk,
beach.
move.
Into the body.
Move the body, yes.
Practice metta
Practice metta for yourself.
for myself.
Yeah, good. Yep, loving kindness. It's really helpful to name it too. It's not gonna, not that you wouldn't do all these other things as well, but it's so helpful when we have really afflictive emotions happening to name it, because in naming it really helps to disidentify from it, right? Right? If you're full of rage and you're just raging at someone, you're not really aware of it, right? You're just being kind of led by it. But if you can go, wow, I am really angry, that's different. That's getting into a completely different relationship with it. Yeah, because there's a witness now, right? There's something that is not angry knowing the anger, right? That which knows anger is not angry. That which knows sadness is not sad, etc., etc. Oh yeah. So to name, oh, this is, I'm getting overwhelmed, really helpful. And then sleeping, moving, walking, yoga, yeah, talking to oneself.
Where does humor and laugh, there's sometimes when maybe my response to the overwhelm is to laugh.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this situation is so absurd, right? There's so much to do, and it's so not possible to even do half of it, that it's just absurd. Sure. There's no right answer. There's no Buddhist list here about how to, it's like, what have you found works? What? So knowing that we're overwhelmed, and knowing what our signs are, and then the skill to move away. Yeah.
Just talking to a friend.
Absolutely. Human contact. You got it. Yep. One of the best things. Because when we're overwhelmed with overwhelm, it's like we're really with ourselves, right? It's like, I have to figure this out, or it's too much, I can't do this. We're really kind of lonesome, or we're by ourselves. So connecting with someone can be very helpful.
In the past, not so much now, but in the past I have found that sometimes journaling.
Yeah, absolutely. Writing, sure, it's a way to have things come up and out. Yep.
You know what I do to prepare myself for every day? I have it in my sink in my bathroom. I read the Guest House every day.
Uh-huh.
It prepares me for
Yeah.
knowing what
Yeah.
crazy work.
She's talking about a poem by Rumi called The Guest House.
I read it
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah. Good.
It's like a preparation.
Yeah. And you know, that poem is like, you know, invite them in.
Yeah.
Sometimes though, just to say this, sometimes we need to shut the door. So sometimes the right thing to do is to say, I cannot entertain you now. I don't have the capacity, right? I don't, and the right thing to do is to shut the door. So that's what this whole third skill is about knowing when to do that. And then how to. Okay, so situations in our life that are dangerous, toxic, that we want to move away from, then times of things just being too much. And knowing when and how to move away from that, to move away from the overwhelm. Overwhelm can also happen while we're meditating. Usually on retreat, but it could easily happen just sitting at home, you know, for 30 minutes or whatever. You know, because usually the analogy I like to give is that we're kind of like butterflies or hummingbirds. We're hovering, right? And the beating is just an analogy. The beating of our wings is how we distract ourselves, right? We keep that going, yeah? Or we kind of stay on the surface level, right? Stay distracted, busy. But once we stop beating our wings, if a bird or butterfly stops beating their wings, what happens? It sinks down. And sometimes when we sit and we consciously let go of the distractions, consciously let go of the busyness and really stop and just be present, we sink down and we touch some things that we've been hovering above, right? Not really consciously, but still hovering. And you know, that can range from anything really. Sometimes though that material is difficult. That's kind of why we've been hovering, right? Because there's part of us that doesn't want to touch it. And sometimes it's just kind of somewhat challenging, and it's okay, we can be with it. It's, it's not great, it's not fun, but it's, we have the capacity to be with it. At other times, the material that we touch, when we kind of sink down, is really difficult. And we may not have the capacity in that moment to really be with it. And when I say capacity to be with it, I mean at least to some degree, just 1% of the experience that there's a witness, that there's a knowing of it, as opposed to being 100% lost in it. Does that make sense? So when I say the capacity to be with something, it's just enough, just barely paper thin, enough to know, maybe not even continuously, maybe just every 10 or 15 seconds, every 30 seconds, we're kind of like, oh right, this is happening. That's enough to be with it. When that's not there though, when the experience is so strong and or our mindfulness and our ability to know it is, at least in that moment, so low, then we can't be with it. It's not, and we become it, right? We don't know it's even happening, and because it's difficult experience, then we start to, we start to get dragged through the mud. We're just at the mercy of that mind state and where it's going, that story, that looping story, or could be PTSD. That's not what we're here to do. That's not meditating. And that's not a helpful place to be in. It's not, doesn't do us any good. It's not, doesn't serve anything except deepen that experience and deepen the habit of your heart and mind to fall into that experience. That's all that's happening. And we definitely don't want that. So we want to know when that's happening, if it's happening, and we want to have the skills to get out. And this is where, at least in the meditation, we'll practice in a little bit. And there's some things that you can do to get out.
I like that phrase, my old friend anger, or my old friend, the naming part of it. Yeah. And that phrase just helps me a great deal.
If you can say that, you're not overwhelmed by it.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you can say that, you're doing well, right? It's when we kind of come up for air and we realize it's been 20 minutes or a week, if it's daily life, like, then we have to go, oh, this is not helping. Nothing good is coming of this, and I need to change this experience. And really, now I'll talk about the next one a little bit, then we'll practice, because actually it's different. I take that back. Let's practice with this, because there's some particular things you can do while you're meditating, but also these skills would also be helpful if you're getting overwhelmed in daily life, and you're able to take a few minutes by yourself and be quiet. Yeah, they would be skills that could be helpful to pull you out of overwhelm, when it came up when you weren't meditating. Okay. But you've been sitting for 45 minutes, so why not stand up just for a moment or two? So now to the most kind of subtle form of moving away. And that is moving away from just anything that's unwholesome. And now we're really talking about just in our mind when we're meditating. And the most simple way we do this, right, is you wake up from being lost in thought, right? Wake up from dreaming about buying that new thing for the 20th time, or whatever it is, right? And it's like, and we bring in clarity, so clear seeing. This is unwholesome. This does not lead to happiness. This is desire. Not all desire is bad, but this kind of desire. You know, this only leads to addiction. This is not good. And what do? Bring our attention back to the primary object. This is moving away from experience. Right? We're letting go of the experience, in this case, of desire, and how it's playing out in the mind. And we move and connect with, we go from here, we direct our attention over here to the breath or to the body or to sounds. And we do this a lot. So just to frame it in that way, you're actually moving, you're taking your attention away from experience and placing it some other place. Very helpful. Want to do that. Every time you wake up from being lost in thought, you want to do that. You want to direct your attention someplace else. It could be any place else. We're not always meditating with a primary anchor. It could be just to what's next, whatever I happen to notice next. But often we use, at least when we wake up from being lost in thought, we do direct our attention to a particular object, breath, body, sounds. So just being clear what you're doing. Yeah? Being really clear, this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it. I'm letting go of this thing that's unwholesome. I'm moving away from it, and I'm moving towards connecting with something that's wholesome. That is presence, mindfulness, concentration, being with, having the attention stay with the primary object, being present, not being lost in thought. This is good. We want to develop this. The path is very simple, you know? The Buddha basically said in many different ways, right? To many different people, but he basically said, notice what causes you to suffer and stop doing it. Gee, what a concept. And notice what brings you happiness and cultivate that. It's not esoteric. So that moment, that wake-up moment, assuming that it's unwholesome, sometimes we might be daydreaming about generosity. Yeah? Oh, that was wholesome. Good. More. But often, more times than not, when we wake up from being lost in thought, it's some, form of desire or aversion that's pulled the attention away. So like, oh, this is something I don't want to feed, right? This is something I want to let go of. This is something actually I want to starve. Now I'm going to turn my attention towards something I do want to cultivate. I do want to feed. But know that. As you're doing that, know that you're doing that. It doesn't have to be so many words as I just used, but be clear that that's what you're doing. Does that make sense? Sometimes it's great to do it anyways and not be clear. That would still be really good to do. But if you could be clear that this is what you're doing, that clarity of what you're doing and why you're doing it will help strengthen it. Right? If you just wake up from being lost in thought, and because you're a meditator, it's like, oh, right, back to the breath, right? Great, good. If you wake up from being lost in thought, oh, that was desire. That's unwholesome. I don't want to, again, this could be a split second. I'm using words. That's unwholesome. I don't want to cultivate that. I'm going to turn my attention to the object. I want to cultivate mindfulness and concentration. Doing that, going back to the breath with that understanding is actually stronger. It will strengthen that habit more. So knowing when, meaning whenever what's in our heart and mind is unwholesome when we're meditating. Desire, aversion, and all the forms of them. Any form of craving, clinging. wanting, not wanting. Basically, not just letting life be. Anything other than that is, okay, we get clear about that. This is not what I'm here to do. This is really important. I'm going to do a little tangent here. When you sit down to meditate, or maybe you do walking meditation, whatever, but when you do your formal practice, be really clear about what your intention is and what you're there to do and what you're there and what you're not there to do. Sit down or walk or stand, whatever your posture is in formal meditation, and be clear. I am not here to daydream. I'm not here to follow these unwholesome habit patterns of my mind. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm not going to do it. I'm here to cultivate mindfulness, or maybe metta, if you're doing metta practice. I'm here to cultivate clear seeing, concentration. This is what I'm here to do, and this is where I'm going to put my energy. It's really helpful to go into your meditation with that level of clarity. Does that mean your mind's not going to wander to unwholesome things? Of course it's going to, but you're going to wake up quicker. Very helpful to, and you don't just think, well, I've been meditating for 10 years. I know what I'm doing. I know what my intention is. It's not the same as getting really clear and conscious about it as you go into your practice. Try it. You'll see, won't take 10 years to see. In one sit, you'll see subtly how it affects your meditation when there's that level of clarity. So we're moving away from experience that's not helpful. It's not to our benefit. It's not for our well-being. It's the only thing it's going to do if we hang out with it is cause us to suffer now in the present and strengthen that habit to do it again in the future. So that's while we're sitting, and we'll practice in a minute. But there are things in daily life, not these big overwhelming things we were talking about, but just moments of something we want to move away from, right? What might it be? One example I'll give, you're talking with someone or a group of people, and the conversation starts to go to a place that's like, it may be talking about badly about someone who's not there, or whatever it might be. It's like, you move away. You move away from that experience. I'm going to go now. What are some other examples about things that would be good to move away from, just in your everyday life?
Overeating.
There you go. You notice it, right? Remember, we have to know the knowledge and the skill as to know when and how to move away. So the only way to know when is to know it. Know that habit. It's 9:45 at night and your head's in the fridge. It's like, I'm not hungry. Right? But if we know that about ourselves, if we've worked with it, chances are we will become conscious of our head in the fridge sooner than if we haven't worked with it. So, yep. Moving away from that experience. Like, no, I don't need to do this. What else? Moving away from experience. There's a million of them.
It's none of our business. It's something that's none of our business. If I get involved in my family.
You start to notice yourself. Being involved or involving yourself, inserting yourself into a situation. No, you can move away from that.
Anger, like how people should not be acting, particularly one's children.
Right, particularly one's children. How would you move away from that?
Well, I really try just to be, to not comment and just try to let the feelings move through me and not say anything.
Right.
So I don't impact them.
Yeah. So working in these were exterior.
Yeah.
Well, it's all interior ultimately, but yeah, moving away from experience in our daily life can be noticing, just like when we're sitting, right? Unwholesome thoughts in the mind. And just going, no. Yep. I mean, that's huge to do that. So many things get cultivated then, right? Wisdom gets cultivated because the wisdom that knows, if I say something right now, it's not going to be good, right? You know, I catch myself. It's like I want to say something to my wife, and it's like, no. Been there, done that, and this is not going to be good. So if we can catch it, we're really strengthening that wisdom that knows that. We're strengthening kindness, right? If you say something to your kids in that space, they're going to feel terrible. You might shame them, or they're going to feel whatever, right? So it's kind. You're cultivating kindness towards them, towards yourself. Yeah? Cultivating mindfulness. Mindfulness that knows, that's aware. Oh, I'm angry right now. I want to say something to them. Yep. Cultivating perseverance. It's like, oh, let me just, you have to persevere with it. Yeah, you have to persevere with that and stay with it and let it pass. So many things that we cultivate just in these moments. I could go on and on of being clear about what's unwholesome and turning away from it. You were talking about traffic, right? Start to get all, embroiled about it. No, don't need to do that. And changing, switching, literally, there's one thing to let go of something, but it's also helpful to turn, like when we're meditating, you turn and place your attention on the breath. So instead of cursing at the person with the New Jersey plates in front of you, it's like possibly, may you get home from your vacation safely. May your family have a joyous time. So it's like turning away from the unwholesome, but actually placing the attention on something wholesome. And again, consciously. Even if it's rote, even if you hardly mean it. It's okay. It's all right. You know what? I'm just going to cultivate wholesomeness now. May you get home to New Jersey safely.
Fast.
Damn it. Right.
Yesterday.
So there's just that little extra piece of turning away from what's unwholesome, but then it can be helpful to actually consciously place the attention on something that's more wholesome, that leads to happiness.
If you said, saying something by rote, does it happen that if you start out maybe not being totally sincere, that if you do it often enough, it becomes one of your
Absolutely.
tools?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did everyone hear that? Even if you just do it rotely at first, if you keep going, it will become more sincere and more, one of your tools. Yeah. The Buddha said, whatever, this is a paraphrase, whatever the mind frequently ponders about becomes the inclination of the mind. Remember that one. It's very humbling. Whatever the mind frequently ponders about becomes the inclination of the mind. So even if it's rote, you're still pondering about it, and it strengthens that. Yep. Because we're not going to do it perfect. That's why it's called Dharma practice. Have you ever seen, a workshop called Dharma perfection? No, it's Dharma practice. It's practice. Yeah. So there are, how many opportunities in a day to practice in this way, right? A gazillion. Lots of unwholesome things arise in the mind. And just remember though, we don't want to feed them, but they're not you. Don't beat yourself up for what goes through your mind. It's all, I don't want to get too on a tangent here, but whenever we're turning our attention to what's unwholesome, I always think it's important to just at least, it's like, this is not an invitation to beat ourselves up for what we're noticing. Right? It's going through the mind just very lawfully. It's not you. It rained out today. The conditions were right for it to rain. You get angry. The conditions are, you're late to your appointment, the traffic. Yeah, those are conditions that are supportive for anger to arise. Sayadaw U Tejaniya said, your mind is not yours. It's true. It's not yours. It's just stuff going through it. But that's only that first half. Your mind is not yours, but you are responsible for it. Because what the mind frequently ponders about becomes the inclination of the mind. That's your responsibility, no one else's. So that's a wonderful Dharma teaching, right in that, so much in that statement. Your mind is not, no, I think he said, your mind does not belong to you. That's it. But you are responsible for it. So, we don't want to feed what's unwholesome. We do want to turn away from it, move away from it, and connect with what's wholesome. So let's end by sitting. Connect with your meditation object, breath, body, sounds, and then the mind will get drawn away at some point, right? And then at some point you'll wake up. In that wake-up moment, try to be clear the way I was saying it. Oh, I'm going to move away now from this material. I'm going to move away from these thoughts, from this aversion, from this desire, and I'm going to place my attention on a more wholesome object, i.e., your meditation object. Okay? Have that level of clarity of what you're doing as you're doing it, and just see what that's like. It doesn't have to be tight and take a long time. Just know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Is that clear? Yeah.